Here's a rewritten version with the same length, simplified for a US audience and no bold text, during a category. 13 storm, my husband pushed me out of the car so he could rush his mistress to the hospital to have her baby. 30 minutes later, he returned and froze when he saw the terrifying scene waiting for him. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a chilling tale about the moment a man's monstrous arrogance met a woman's glacial resolve, proving that the coldest revenge isn't about pain, but about absolute, crushing irrelevance. What do you do when the person you swore to love throws you out into a raging hurricane, just to get to his mistress, leaving you for dead? You rebuild yourself into a force he couldn't even dream of, and then you watch him fall. Let me tell you about Eleanor. We're talking about Greenwich, Connecticut, the kind of place where money whispers, it doesn't shout. Except, on this particular night, the only thing shouting was the fierce wind tearing through the grand oak trees outside. Inside, Eleanor was in her vast, modern kitchen, meticulously spooning amber glaze onto a perfectly seared filet mignon. Michael's favorite. You know, that rich aroma of butter, herbs, garlic, mashed potatoes. It filled the air. She glanced at the elegant European clock, 9 p.m. 3 hours past his usual arrival. The lavish meal, long prepared, had grown cool, mirroring the slow, creeping chill in her heart. She sighed, untied her apron, and sank onto the plush sofa, her eyes staring blankly into the dark, rain-streaked yard. 3 years of marriage and dinners for one had become, well, the norm. Over the past year, Michael's arrivals had grown erratic, his phone calls more secretive. And that familiar, comforting scent of cedarwood he used to wear? Gone. Replaced by something else. The lingering fragrance of women's perfume, a different one each day. Sweet, cloying, utterly foreign. Then, the sharp, cold click of the key in the lock. Eleanor jumped, rising quickly, her legs a little numb. Michael Hayes stepped inside, bringing the storm's chill with him. His designer suit was uncharacteristically wrinkled, and that sweet floral scent, definitely not hers, still clung to the air. You're home, she said, trying to mask the exhaustion. Have you eaten? I can heat up dinner for you. He loosened his tie, tossing his leather briefcase carelessly onto a chair. He didn't even look at her. No need. I'll eat what's here. He sat at the dining table like a king on his throne, and Eleanor, like some beautiful servant, quietly served him. She sat opposite, watching him. He took a bite of the steak, chewed, and frowned. It's a bit overdone, he commented, as casually as if discussing the weather. I had steak at a friend's place last week. She's a much better cook. Perfectly medium rare, so tender. You should learn from her. Eleanor's hand, holding her fork, froze midair. An invisible weight pressed on her chest, making it hard to breathe. A friend? He said it so casually, so harmlessly. She remembered a time he swore her cooking was the best in the world. She lowered her head, hiding the trembling of her lips. Okay, I'll be more careful next time. A suffocating silence descended, more terrifying than any argument. It was a dull knife sawing slowly at her heart. Just then, Michael's phone lit up with a text. She saw a gentle smile flicker across his usually stern face, a smile she hadn't seen directed at her in years. He picked up the phone and walked out onto the covered patio, closing the glass door, separating their two worlds. She couldn't hear the words clearly, but she could feel the tenderness in his voice through the glass. Yeah, I'm home. Have you eaten? Are you tired? Don't overthink things. Get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow. Every muffled word crushed the last vestiges of hope. Eleanor sat alone at the cold dinner table, watching her husband pour all his affection onto another woman. The sprawling mansion suddenly felt cavernous and freezing. Tears streamed down her face, falling onto her untouched food. The next morning, Eleanor was jolted awake by her phone. It was Michael. His voice was impatient, demanding. The Sterling Properties contract is on my desk in the study. I have a meeting at 10 o'clock. Bring it to the office for me now and hurry up. He hung up before she could reply. His indifference was now a reflex. Eleanor looked at her reflection, eyes puffy from crying all night. She listlessly changed into a simple dress, found the contract, and rushed out. Michael's company, Hayes Industries, occupied the top floors of a glittering midtown Manhattan skyscraper, a monument to wealth and power. Eleanor, in her simple cream dress, felt like an outsider. Despite being the CEO's wife, she'd been there maybe a handful of times in 3 years. The receptionist eyed her with a mix of curiosity and scrutiny, but remained professional. Mrs. Hayes, please go up to the top floor. Mr. Hayes is expecting you. When the private executive elevator opened on the 35th floor, the first person she saw wasn't Michael. It was a beautiful young woman in a form-fitting business dress, standing by Michael's desk, carefully arranging a bouquet of fragrant lilies. It felt unnervingly intimate. Seeing Eleanor, the young woman smiled sweetly and walked over. You must be Mrs. Hayes. I'm Jessica Miller, Mr. Hayes' assistant. He talks about you all the time. Her words were like tiny needles. Asterisk, Michael talks about me? He barely speaks a civil word to me. Asterisk, hello, I'm here to drop off a document for him, Eleanor replied, forcing her emotions down. Jessica raised a hand to tuck a stray curl of wavy hair back into place. It was a deliberate move to show off a sparkling platinum bracelet. Oh, this thing is so cumbersome, she pouted prettily. Mr. Hayes insisted it suited me, but I'm not so sure. Eleanor's heart tightened. She recognized that bracelet. From the latest collection of a world-renowned designer. Just last month, for their anniversary, she'd admired a necklace from the same collection, but Michael had dismissed it as too extravagant and frivolous. Yet, here was an even more expensive bracelet on his assistant's wrist. Noticing the color drain from Eleanor's face, Jessica smirked inwardly, but put on a show of enthusiasm. Please have a seat. Mr. Hayes is in a meeting, but it should be over soon. Let me get you a cup of coffee. Before Eleanor could refuse, Jessica hurried to a small break room. A moment later, she emerged with a steaming mug. As she handed it to Eleanor, her wrist trembled, and the entire cup of hot coffee spilled onto Eleanor's hand and her dress. Eleanor cried out softly, her hand immediately turning red. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hayes. I'm so clumsy, Jessica apologized profusely, though a glint of triumph flashed in her eyes. Just then, the conference room door opened. Michael emerged with several business partners. His eyes immediately fell on the scene, his wife wincing in pain, her dress stained, his assistant looking pale and distraught. His face darkened instantly. Without asking for an explanation, he barked at Eleanor. What are you doing? Jessica was just trying to be nice. If you didn't want it, you could have just said no. Why would you do that to her? His voice was laced with anger and disappointment, as if she had committed a heinous crime. He rushed to Jessica's side, asking with concern, completely ignoring his wife's reddened, burning hand, Are you okay? Did you get burned? The humiliation washed over Eleanor, leaving her speechless. Any words of defense died in her throat. In front of his partners, in front of his staff, he had stripped her of all dignity. He turned back to her, his eyes cold as ice, his voice a low, contemptuous hiss. Look at yourself. You come to my office dressed like that and cause a scene. Go home. Don't embarrass me further. With that, he turned and gently comforted Jessica, who was now leaning against him, looking victimized. Then he continued escorting his guests as if Eleanor was nothing but thin air. Eleanor stood alone in the vast, cold corridor. The burn on her hand still throbbed, but it was nothing compared to the agony tearing at her heart. She silently placed the contract on the reception desk and walked away, her back straight and solitary. She didn't cry. She had already run out of tears the night before. The humiliation at the office smoldered within Eleanor all day. She returned to the cold, empty house and sat in the dark, letting the pain consume her. She didn't know how long she sat there, only that when she finally stirred, it was late and Michael still wasn't home. He wouldn't be coming home tonight. She staggered to her feet and walked into their walk-in closet. The scent of Jessica's perfume still clung to the suit jacket he had worn. A wave of nausea rose in her throat. She wanted to throw it in the trash, to burn it to ashes, but in the end, she could only carry it numbly to the laundry room. As she checked the pockets, her fingers brushed against a piece of paper folded into a neat square. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. A sense of dread washed over her as her trembling hands unfolded it. It was an ultrasound report from a prestigious maternity hospital in Manhattan. The crisp black print was like 1,000 tiny knives stabbing at her eyes. Name, Jessica Miller. Age, 24. Diagnosis, single intrauterine pregnancy. 32 weeks. 32 weeks. 8 months. The flimsy piece of paper suddenly felt impossibly heavy. It slipped from her grasp, fluttering to the cold tile floor. She collapsed, body devoid of all strength. 8 months. It meant that while he was still whispering sweet nothings to her, while they were still sharing intimate nights, he had already fathered a child with another woman. The deception was too cruel, too disgusting. Her vision blurred. 3 years of marriage. She had given up her status as the daughter of a prominent family, abandoned a promising career, all to be his support system. She learned to cook, to arrange flowers, to be the perfect wife in his eyes. And this blatant betrayal, was her reward. She didn't know how long she sat on the frigid floor until the bedroom door swung open. Michael walked in, reeking of alcohol. He saw her on the ground, the ultrasound report beside her, and froze. But there was no flicker of guilt or panic on his face, only annoyance and cold detachment. You went through my things, he stated, his voice a low accusation. Eleanor looked up, her red-rimmed eyes fixing on him. She picked up the report, her voice shaking, but each word clear. Michael, what is this? Michael glanced at the paper, then back at her, his expression utterly shameless. He didn't even bother to deny it. It's exactly what you see. Jessica is pregnant. It's my child. Why? Eleanor felt a bitter taste rise in her throat. Why would you do this to me? Why? Michael let out a cold, cruel laugh. He walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, looking down at her with condescension. Eleanor, take a good look at yourself. We've been married for 3 years, and your stomach is still flat. I need a son to carry on my name, to inherit the empire I've worked so hard to build. Can you give me that? His every word was a dagger twisting in her heart, drawing blood. So, in his eyes, she was nothing more than a machine for childbirth. And when she failed, he was perfectly willing to find a replacement. So you found someone else to have your child, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Our love, your vows. Was it all a lie? Love. He sneered. Can you eat love? Does it help me close multi-million-dollar deals? Eleanor, stop being so naive. A woman like Jessica is the one who can help me in my career, not a wife who just putters around the kitchen. The truth was laid bare, raw and excruciating. She couldn't believe the man before her was the same one she had once loved with every fiber of her being. Seeing her silent tears, he lost all patience. He stood up, towering over her, his voice turning glacial. You have 2 choices. 1, you accept your role as Mrs. Hayes, and you accept the existence of Jessica and my son. When the baby is born, you will raise him. He will still call you mother. 2. He paused, leaning down close to her ear. We divorce. You'll walk away with nothing. Remember this house, your car, everything is in my name. His words were a death sentence. He offered her no escape, only a choice between humiliation and destitution. Eleanor looked up at him through her tears. His familiar face now seemed monstrous and alien. Her heart, at that moment, went completely numb. For the next few days, the atmosphere in the Greenwich estate was suffocating. Eleanor and Michael lived under the same roof like strangers. He left early and came back late, treating her as if she were invisible. Her heart had turned to stone. She had nothing left to say to him. The divorce papers were already drafted, waiting for the right moment. That morning, as Eleanor watered her orchids on the balcony, Michael emerged from his study, already dressed in a sharp suit. Get ready. This afternoon, we're driving out to the Hamptons. It was an order, not a request. Eleanor turned, her gaze steady. The Hamptons? What for? It's Grandma's 80th birthday. Did you forget? He asked, his brow furrowed in annoyance. How could she forget? His grandmother was the only person in his family who had ever been kind to her, but she was no longer in the mood to play the part of the beautiful granddaughter-in-law. I'm not going. You can go by yourself, she replied, her tone firm. Her defiance clearly angered him. He strode forward, his large hand clamping down on her wrist. Eleanor, don't push your luck. You think you have the right to refuse? Let me tell you something. As long as you are Mrs. Hayes, you have a duty to maintain my image, this family's image. Everyone back home knows I have a perfect wife. Do you want me to lose face in front of my relatives? Image. Eleanor laughed. A bitter, broken sound. Michael Hayes. You still care about your image? When you were sleeping with another woman, getting her pregnant, did you ever think about my dignity? Shut up, he roared, his grip tightening, making her wrist ache. That's my business. It's not for you to judge. You are going this afternoon. Don't make me use force. He released her, leaving an angry red mark on her pale skin. He adjusted his tie and turned to leave, tossing a final cold command over his shoulder. We leave at 2. Be ready and dress properly. Eleanor watched his retreating back, a deep-seated hatred filling her. He didn't need her for love. He needed her as a beautiful accessory, a flawless facade to conceal his rotten, deceitful life. That afternoon, a sleek black Mercedes rolled out of the estate's gates. The air inside the car was colder than the air conditioning. Eleanor stared out the window, watching the Connecticut landscape blur past like a silent film. Michael focused on driving, his face a motionless mask. They didn't exchange a single word. The silence was heavy, oppressive. A news bulletin on the radio interrupted a soft melody. The announcer's voice turned grave. Breaking news. The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning. Hurricane Isolde is rapidly intensifying and is projected to make landfall along the eastern seaboard, including Long Island tonight. Sustained winds near the storm center could reach 140 miles per hour, a strong Category 4. A red alert has been issued. All residents are advised to stay indoors. All vehicles on major highways should seek immediate safe shelter. Eleanor turned to Michael, her voice filled with anxiety. Did you hear that? A major hurricane is coming. Maybe we should turn back. We can just call your grandmother. Michael shot her a contemptuous look. It's just a storm. What's the big deal? You're that scared of dying? The news always exaggerates. I promised Grandma I'd be there and I don't break my promises. But this is a hurricane. It's dangerous. We're driving straight into it. I said it's fine, so it's fine, he snapped, his patience gone. Now sit there quietly and don't distract me. Eleanor knew she couldn't change his mind. Stubbornness and selfishness were etched into his very being. She could only clutch her seatbelt tighter, an unnamed dread coiling in her stomach. Outside, the sky was darkening, the wind picking up, carrying a damp, ominous chill. This journey felt ill-fated from the start. The car sped along I-95, the main artery connecting the major cities of the East Coast. The sky had turned a bruised, heavy gray, as if it were about to collapse. Gigantic black clouds churned overhead, heralding the imminent fury of nature. The wind began to howl, gusting so violently that even the heavy luxury sedan shuddered. Then the first drops of rain fell, starting as a light patter before intensifying into a torrential downpour. Water slammed against the windshield in sheets, the wipers working at maximum speed, but failing to keep the view clear. Visibility dropped to just a few feet of blurry, terrifying gray. Eleanor gripped her handbag, her body tense. She could feel the danger closing in. With every powerful gust, it felt as if the car might be lifted off the road. "Michael, this is too dangerous. Please find an exit, a rest stop, anything. We need to wait it out." Her voice was thin with fear. "Driving in this is suicide." Michael's face remained a stony mask of defiance. He gripped the steering wheel, his eyes narrowed, straining to see the road ahead. The ferocity of the storm did nothing to soften his obstinacy. "The exit is just up ahead. We're almost there." "Stop making a scene," he barked, his voice sharp with irritation. He hated this weather, and he hated her fear. Just then, above the roar of the rain and the shriek of the wind, his phone rang, a shrill, urgent sound. The screen glowed, displaying a single name, Jessica. Instantly, the irritation and stubbornness vanished from Michael's face, replaced by an unconcealable anxiety. He quickly answered, putting the call on speaker so he could drive. "Jessica, what's wrong?" His voice was suddenly gentle, a tenderness Eleanor hadn't heard in years. From the other end came Jessica's panicked, sobbing voice, punctuated by ragged breaths. "Michael, huff, where are you? Help me. My stomach. It hurts so bad." Michael's heart seized. "Where are you? What happened? Calm down and tell me." I fell in the bathroom. Now I'm having these horrible cramps. I think my water broke." Jessica's pained cry echoed through the car. "Michael, I'm so scared. Is our baby going to be okay? Please, come back for me. I think I'm in labor." "In labor?" The words struck Michael like a bolt of lightning. His face went ghostly pale. His son, the son he had been waiting for, was about to be born. In that moment, everything else ceased to exist. His grandmother's party, the Category 4 hurricane, the dangers of the highway, all of it was wiped from his mind. All he could picture was Jessica in agony and his unborn son. "Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Just stay put. I'm coming back for you right now. I'm coming back," he yelled into the phone, his voice frantic. Without a moment's hesitation, without a second thought, Michael Hayes did something insane. He wrenched the steering wheel hard to the left. The black Mercedes swerved violently. For the next few days, the atmosphere in the Greenwich estate was suffocating. Eleanor and Michael lived under the same roof like strangers. He left early and came back late, treating her as if she were invisible. Her heart had turned to stone. She had nothing left to say to him. The divorce papers were already drafted, waiting for the right moment. That morning, as Eleanor watered her orchids on the balcony, Michael emerged from his study, already dressed in a sharp suit. "Get ready. This afternoon, we're driving out to the Hamptons." It was an order, not a request. Eleanor turned, her gaze steady. "The Hamptons? What for?" "It's Grandma's 80th birthday." "Did you forget?" he asked, his brow furrowed in annoyance. How could she forget? His grandmother was the only person in his family who had ever been kind to her, but she was no longer in the mood to play the part of the beautiful granddaughter-in-law. "I'm not going." "You can go by yourself," she replied, her tone firm. Her defiance clearly angered him. He strode forward, his large hand clamping down on her wrist. "Eleanor, don't push your luck. You think you have the right to refuse? Let me tell you something. As long as you are Mrs. Hayes, you have a duty to maintain my image, this family's image. Everyone back home knows I have a perfect wife. Do you want me to lose face in front of my relatives?" "Image." Eleanor laughed. A bitter, broken sound. "Michael Hayes, you still care about your image? When you were sleeping with another woman, getting her pregnant, did you ever think about my dignity?" "Shut up," he roared, his grip tightening, making her wrist ache. "That's my business. It's not for you to judge. You are going this afternoon. Don't make me use force." He released her, leaving an angry red mark on her pale skin. He adjusted his tie and turned to leave, tossing a final cold command over his shoulder. "We leave at 2. Be ready and dress properly." Eleanor watched his retreating back, a deep-seated hatred filling her. He didn't need her for love. He needed her as a beautiful accessory, a flawless facade to conceal his rotten, deceitful life. That afternoon, a sleek black Mercedes rolled out of the estate's gates. The air inside the car was colder than the air conditioning. Eleanor stared out the window, watching the Connecticut landscape blur past like a silent film. Michael focused on driving, his face a motionless mask. They didn't exchange a single word. The silence was heavy, oppressive. A news bulletin on the radio interrupted a soft melody. The announcer's voice turned grave. Breaking news. The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning. Hurricane Isolde is rapidly intensifying and is projected to make landfall along the eastern seaboard, including Long Island tonight. Sustained winds near the storm center could reach 140 miles per hour, a strong Category 4. A red alert has been issued. All residents are advised to stay indoors. All vehicles on major highways should seek immediate safe shelter. Eleanor turned to Michael, her voice filled with anxiety. Did you hear that? A major hurricane is coming. Maybe we should turn back. We can just call your grandmother. Michael shot her a contemptuous look. It's just a storm. What's the big deal? You're that scared of dying? The news always exaggerates. I promised Grandma I'd be there and I don't break my promises. But this is a hurricane. It's dangerous. We're driving straight into it. I said it's fine, so it's fine, he snapped, his patience gone. Now sit there quietly and don't distract me. Eleanor knew she couldn't change his mind. Stubbornness and selfishness were etched into his very being. She could only clutch her seatbelt tighter, an unnamed dread coiling in her stomach. Outside, the sky was darkening, the wind picking up, carrying a damp, ominous chill. This journey felt ill-fated from the start. The car sped along I-95, the main artery connecting the major cities of the East Coast. The sky had turned a bruised, heavy gray, as if it were about to collapse. Gigantic black clouds churned overhead, heralding the imminent fury of nature. The wind began to howl, gusting so violently that even the heavy luxury sedan shuddered. Then the first drops of rain fell, starting as a light patter before intensifying into a torrential downpour. Water slammed against the windshield in sheets, the wipers working at maximum speed, but failing to keep the view clear. Visibility dropped to just a few feet of blurry, terrifying gray. Eleanor gripped her handbag, her body tense. She could feel the danger closing in. With every powerful gust, it felt as if the car might be lifted off the road. Michael, this is too dangerous. Please find an exit, a rest stop, anything. We need to wait it out. Her voice was thin with fear. Driving in this is suicide. Michael's face remained a stony mask of defiance. He gripped the steering wheel, his eyes narrowed, straining to see the road ahead. The ferocity of the storm did nothing to soften his obstinacy. The exit is just up ahead. We're almost there. Stop making a scene, he barked, his voice sharp with irritation. He hated this weather, and he hated her fear. Just then, above the roar of the rain and the shriek of the wind, his phone rang, a shrill, urgent sound. The screen glowed, displaying a single name, Jessica. Instantly, the irritation and stubbornness vanished from Michael's face, replaced by an unconcealable anxiety. He quickly answered, putting the call on speaker so he could drive. Jessica, what's wrong? His voice was suddenly gentle, a tenderness Eleanor hadn't heard in years. From the other end came Jessica's panicked, sobbing voice, punctuated by ragged breaths. Michael, huff, where are you? Help me. My stomach. It hurts so bad. Michael's heart seized. Where are you? What happened? Calm down and tell me. I fell in the bathroom. Now I'm having these horrible cramps. I think my water broke. Jessica's pained cry echoed through the car. Michael, I'm so scared. Is our baby going to be okay? Please, come back for me. I think I'm in labor. In labor? The words struck Michael like a bolt of lightning. His face went ghostly pale. His son, the son he had been waiting for, was about to be born. In that moment, everything else ceased to exist. His grandmother's party, the Category 4 hurricane, the dangers of the highway, all of it was wiped from his mind. All he could picture was Jessica in agony and his unborn son. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Just stay put. I'm coming back for you right now. I'm coming back, he yelled into the phone, his voice frantic. Without a moment's hesitation, without a second thought, Michael Hayes did something insane. He wrenched the steering wheel hard to the left. The black Mercedes swerved violently, initiating a sharp U-turn directly in the middle of the highway, into the path of oncoming traffic obscured by the blinding rain. Screech, the blare of a semi-truck's horn and the tortured sound of its brakes filled the air along with the driver's furious curses. Eleanor screamed, her body thrown forward against her seatbelt. Her heart felt like it would pound out of her chest. Michael, are you insane? She shrieked, her voice cracking with terror. What are you doing? Do you want to die? But Michael heard nothing. His eyes were bloodshot, his mind consumed by Jessica and their child. He completed the reckless turn, slammed his foot on the accelerator, and the car roared to life, speeding back in the opposite direction, back towards New York City, leaving behind a cacophony of angry horns and near-fatal disaster. The car flew like a crazed beast through the white curtain of rain. Eleanor was still reeling from the terrifying maneuver. She looked at the man beside her, the man she once called her husband. His face was now a stranger's mask of madness. His eyes veined with red, his features twisted with a frantic desperation. "Michael, pull over right now," Eleanor said, trying to keep her voice steady, but it trembled betrayingly. "Do you realize what you just did? You nearly caused a catastrophic accident. For her, you're willing to throw away your own life." Her words, instead of calming him, were like gasoline on a fire. He saw her pleas as an obstacle, a nuisance. Every second that passed was another second of potential danger for his son. And she, his legal wife, was here nagging him. "Shut your mouth," he bellowed, his voice louder than the storm outside. "What do you know? That's my son, the heir to the Hayes family. Is your life worth more than his?" His cruel words were a final, brutal stab into Eleanor's already wounded heart. She was stunned, unable to believe what she was hearing. In his eyes, her life was worth less than the unborn child of his mistress. Tears streamed from her eyes, a torrent of pain and despair. She began to plead, to beg him. "Michael, please, we can't keep going like this. The storm is too strong. The roads are slick. Think about our safety. Just pull over and we can call an ambulance for her, can't we?" "Call an ambulance?" He sneered, his laugh dripping with contempt. "And wait for them to crawl their way over while my son is in danger? No, I have to get there myself now." The car continued to hurtle forward at a terrifying speed. Eleanor looked out the window, the landscape a blur. She saw a sign for a desolate stretch of highway, a section with fewer cars due to ongoing construction. A monstrous, unthinkable idea sparked in Michael's mind. He glanced at her, his eyes utterly devoid of warmth. Her presence, her words, they were all an infuriating distraction. He needed to get to the hospital faster, and perhaps her absence would help him focus. Screech, he slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on the wet pavement, coming to a halt in the emergency lane. Eleanor was thrown forward, her head narrowly missing the dashboard. Before she could recover, Michael turned to her. His eyes were those of a demon, his voice as cold and hard as Arctic ice. "Get out." Eleanor thought she had misheard him. In this hurricane, on this deserted highway, he was telling her to get out of the car? "What? What did you say?" she stammered, a profound fear gripping her. "I said, get the hell out of my car," he roared this time, the cruelty in his voice undisguised. "You're a curse. I've wasted so much time because of you. Now get out." With that, he unbuckled his own seatbelt, lunged across the console, and unlatched her door. A blast of wind and icy rain tore into the car. "No, Michael. You can't do this. If you leave me here, I'll die." Eleanor screamed in panic, trying to pull the door shut, but she was no match for his strength. "Then die," he snarled, his malice reaching its peak. He grabbed her arm and dragged her brutally from the car. Eleanor struggled, but it was useless. "Let go of me. You're an animal." Without another word, he shoved her with all his might. Eleanor fell sprawling onto the cold, gritty asphalt. Rainwater and mud soaked through her clothes instantly. The fall was painful, but the physical ache was nothing compared to the shattering of her heart. He wasn't done. He reached back into the car, grabbed her purse, and threw it out onto the road beside her, its contents scattered across the wet ground. He stood by the open door, looking down at her as a god might look upon an insect. His voice, cold and venomous, cut through the storm, etching itself into her soul. "Listen to me, Eleanor. My son's life is more important than yours." He slammed the door shut, got back into the driver's seat, and the engine roared one last time. The black Mercedes shot forward, quickly disappearing into the white veil of rain, leaving her alone on the desolate highway, abandoned to the full fury of the heavens. Eleanor lay on the asphalt, the storm lashing at her. She no longer felt the cold, no longer felt the pain. She stared in the direction the car had vanished and began to laugh. It was a mournful, desolate sound, lost in the howl of the hurricane, the sound of a heart breaking for the very last time. The rain continued its relentless assault, but Eleanor Vance felt nothing. Lying on the pavement of I-95, her dress soaked and smeared with grime. The physical pain was a distant echo compared to the agony of a heart shattered beyond repair. Despair had crested and then receded, leaving in its wake a terrifying calm. The tears were gone. There were none left to cry. She laughed. The sound started as a faint tremor in her throat before erupting into a raw, desolate wail that mingled with the roar of the hurricane. It was the laugh of release, of an ending. Michael Hayes, you have personally killed the wife who loved you with all her soul. From this moment on, The Eleanor you knew is dead, asterisk with a trembling hand. She fumbled for her purse. Miraculously, her phone was intact, though slick with rain. The screen flickered to life. Her fingers scrolled through her contacts, pausing on a number buried deep in her memory, a number she had promised herself she would never call again. But he had forced her hand. She took a deep, shuddering breath and pressed the call button. The ringing tone was steady, like the final beats of her dying heart. After a few seconds, a deep, authoritative voice, laced with worry, answered Ellie. Hearing that familiar voice, the fortress of composure she had built around herself crumbled. But she did not cry. Her voice was a hoarse, strangely calm whisper. "Grandfather, it's me, Eleanor." "Ellie, where are you? Why does your voice sound like that? What's happened to you?" The voice on the other end grew urgent. "I'm fine," Eleanor replied, her eyes staring into the void of the storm. "I'm on I-95 heading east from the city, near mile marker 158. I'm stranded." She didn't mention being thrown from the car. Not a word of complaint. She simply stated her location. Her calmness was more chilling than any scream. "All right, stay right where you are. Do not move. Keep your phone with you. I'm sending people to get you right now." After hanging up, Eleanor huddled by the side of the road, wrapping her arms around herself. Time seemed to stand still. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. The rain began to lessen, but the sky remained pitch black. About 30 minutes later, Michael Hayes's black Mercedes returned. He wasn't back out of remorse or concern for her safety. Oh no. After calling the hospital and learning that Jessica had only had a scare and her condition was stable, his manic frenzy subsided. Logic returned, and with it, fear. Asterisk, what if she actually died? What if someone found out he'd abandoned his wife in a hurricane? Asterisk, he would be in serious trouble. Self-preservation, not love, had driven him back. But as his car approached the familiar stretch of road, he froze. His eyes widened in disbelief at the scene before him. The once desolate highway was now lit up like day. A convoy of 5 black Cadillac Escalades, all with official government plates, was parked in a perfect, imposing line. Their high-intensity headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the area. Surrounding the vehicles were men in dark suits and tactical gear, standing guard with an unnerving stillness, their sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. The air crackled with an aura of absolute power that would make anyone tremble. His luxury car, compared to this motorcade, looked like a cheap toy. And then he saw her. Eleanor was being helped to her feet by a distinguished-looking man in a tailored suit who respectfully held a large umbrella over her. A heavy, official-looking coat was draped over her shoulders, shielding her small, drenched frame. The man carefully opened the door to the lead vehicle, a specially armored Escalade, and helped her inside. Just before the door closed, Eleanor's gaze swept across the scene. It landed on his car, her eyes meeting his terrified ones. There was no hatred in her look, no pain. It was as cold as a 1,000-year-old glacier, as sharp as a blade, piercing straight through his soul. It was the look of a stranger, filled with contempt and utter finality. The door shut. The formidable convoy began to move, pulling away with silent, intimidating grace, leaving Michael Hayes alone in his car. His face was ashen, his hands gripping the steering wheel, yet still shaking uncontrollably. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Asterisk government plates? A security detail? Eleanor? Who exactly had he married? And what had he just thrown away? Asterisk, a terrifying, unprecedented dread consumed him. He felt as if he had just stared into the abyss. The convoy of Escalades moved swiftly and silently, exiting the highway onto a private, unmarked road that led deep into the secluded hills of the Hudson Valley. This was the entrance to a highly secure private compound, a place utterly inaccessible to the public. The lead vehicle stopped before a grand stone manor that, while historic, radiated an aura of immense power. The same aide respectfully opened the door for Eleanor. She was now wrapped in a warm wool blanket, a hot cup of tea in her hands, helping to restore some warmth. Inside, the heat from a roaring fireplace enveloped her. In the great room, an elderly man with a full head of white hair and a ramrod straight posture sat in a large carved armchair. He was dressed in simple casual wear, but the formidable presence he exuded was undeniable. His eyes, deep and sharp, were filled with a mixture of profound heartache and unadulterated fury as he looked upon his only granddaughter's wretched state. This was Senator Alastair Vance, a living legend in Washington, a man who, though retired, still commanded immense influence over the political and financial worlds. "Grandfather," Eleanor said softly, her voice still hoarse. Alastair Vance rose, striding quickly to embrace her. His hug was warm and solid. "Ellie, my girl, you've suffered." Eleanor didn't cry. She just nodded silently, the warmth melting a small piece of the ice around her heart. After she had showered and changed into warm, dry clothes, she sat opposite her grandfather. The aide, a man named David, his most trusted chief of staff, stood silently nearby. "Tell me what happened." Alistair's voice was low, but the authority of the powerful senator had returned. And Eleanor told him. She spoke with a chilling calm. She told him about her 3 years of marriage, about her silent endurance. She told him about Jessica Miller, the ultrasound, the 8-month pregnancy. She told him about the trip to the Hamptons, the hurricane, the fateful phone call, and finally, she told him how Michael Hayes had thrown her out of the car in the storm, and about his final words, "My son's life is more important than yours." With every word she spoke, the senator's expression grew darker. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken rage. David, standing by, clenched his fists, his own anger palpable. Asterisk to dare treat the Vance family's princess this way? This Hayes fellow had a death wish. Asterisk when Eleanor finished, she looked at her grandfather, her eyes no longer weak, but filled with a newfound steely resolve. "Grandfather, I want a divorce." Alistair said nothing. He simply reached out and gently wiped away a single tear that had escaped and traced a path down her cheek. Then he turned to David. His voice was quiet, but each word landed with the weight of a hammer, carrying the fury of an old lion. "David." "Yes, Senator." David stood at attention. "Investigate everything about this punk Michael Hayes and that little tramp. His company, his associates, every single bank account. I want a full report on my desk in 1 hour." "Yes, sir." And Alistair paused, a cold light flashing in his eyes. "Make a call to the Treasury. Use our leverage. I want an immediate freeze on all assets tied to Michael Hayes and Hayes Industries. Every account, every stock, every piece of real estate. I want him to be penniless. Let's see how he plans to support his precious son with no money." The senator's command was absolute. The retribution had just begun. Michael Hayes was about to pay the ultimate price for his cruelty and stupidity. After fleeing the horrifying scene on the highway, Michael Hayes drove in a daze. The image of the government convoy and Eleanor's glacial stare played over and over in his mind like a waking nightmare. He tried to convince himself he had imagined it, but a snake of pure fear was coiling tightly around his heart. He raced to the maternity hospital in Manhattan. As he entered the lobby, a nurse recognized him. "Mr. Hayes, you're here. Miss Miller has been moved to a regular room." The doctor said it was a false alarm, just some minor distress from a panic attack. "The baby is fine." But what?" Michael demanded, his heart pounding. "But the baby has arrived. It's a girl. 6 pounds, 5 ounces. "What? A girl?" Michael was stunned, feeling as though a bucket of ice water had been thrown in his face. A girl, not a son. Jessica had had multiple ultrasounds. The doctors had always said it was most likely a boy. A wave of bitter disappointment washed over him, extinguishing the last of his anxiety. He had defied a hurricane, thrown his wife away, all for a male heir, and the result was a daughter. The feeling of being duped filled him with rage. He stormed into the hospital room. Jessica was lying in bed, looking exhausted, but still trying to appear weak and pitiful. "Michael, you came," she whimpered. "I was so scared." But Michael was in no mood to comfort her. "Why is it a girl?" he asked coldly. Jessica's face stiffened. I don't know," she stammered. "The doctor said ultrasounds can sometimes be wrong." "Wrong?" he snarled. "You lied to me. Explain this." As they argued, Michael's phone rang. It was his CFO. He answered impatiently. "Mr. Hayes, it's a disaster. All of the company's accounts and your personal accounts, they've all been frozen. The bank just said it was a directive from the highest levels. They won't give a reason." "Frozen? Impossible," Michael shouted. Who would have the power to do that? He quickly opened his banking app. Sure enough, every single one of his accounts was flagged. Transaction suspended. An icy chill shot down his spine. He remembered the convoy, the government plates. This couldn't be a coincidence. He frantically dialed Eleanor's number, but it went straight to voicemail. He called again and again, dozens of times. Nothing. She wasn't picking up, or she had blocked him. Terror began to consume him. What was Eleanor's background? How could she command a government security detail? How could she have the power to freeze his entire fortune in an instant? He searched his memory. For 3 years, she had been a gentle, unassuming wife. She had told him her family were just ordinary civil servants. Her parents had passed away, and she only had a retired grandfather. He had never questioned it. Her ordinary, controllable nature was precisely why he had chosen her. Now he realized he had been a fool, a catastrophic fool. That retired grandfather, how ordinary could he be? Michael collapsed into a chair, drenched in a cold sweat. He felt like a tiny ant facing a colossal, unmovable mountain. He had with his own hands thrown away the most powerful asset of his life and foolishly made an enemy of a force beyond his wildest imagination. 2 days later, Michael Hayes was living in a state of constant, gnawing terror. His company was in chaos. Partners were calling, demanding answers. At the hospital, Jessica was a constant source of complaints and tears. He was sitting on a powder keg, completely helpless. He couldn't contact Eleanor and didn't dare return to the Greenwich house. That morning, as he sat in his CEO's office, his mind a tangled mess, his new assistant hesitantly entered. "Mr. Hayes, a Mr. Cole is here to see you. He says he has an appointment." "Cole?" Michael frowned. He didn't know any lawyer named Cole, but in his current predicament, he didn't dare refuse anyone. "Send him in." The office door opened, and a tall, handsome man in a perfectly tailored suit walked in. He was in his 30s, with sharp features and piercing eyes behind frameless glasses that radiated intelligence and confidence. His presence was so commanding it seemed to diminish Michael's own. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Ethan Cole, a senior partner at one of Manhattan's top law firms," he said with a polite but chilling smile. He sat down opposite Michael, placing a blue file on the polished desk. "What can I do for you, Mr. Cole?" Michael asked, trying to maintain his composure, but a terrible premonition was rising within him. Ethan slid the file across the desk. "I'm here as legal counsel for my client, Miss Eleanor Vance, to discuss your divorce proceedings." "Divorce?" Even though he had expected it, the words struck Michael with a physical pang. "Where is Eleanor?" "I want to speak with her directly." "My client has no desire to see you at this time," Ethan replied coolly. "From now on, all communication will go through me. I invite you to review the divorce petition. Miss Vance has already signed it." Michael's hands trembled as he opened the file. It was an ironclad petition. And in the section for asset division, there was only one simple line: Michael Hayes voluntarily relinquishes all claims to any and all assets acquired during the marriage. His anger flared. "This is ridiculous." "On what grounds?" "This company, the houses, the cars. I built all of this with my own 2 hands. She has no right." Ethan just chuckled, a sound full of pity and scorn. "Are you sure about that, Mr. Hayes? Do you need me to remind you? 3 years ago, when Hayes Industries was on the verge of bankruptcy, who was it that injected a massive anonymous sum of capital to save you? That investment, with interest calculated at current market value. I'm afraid selling off your entire company wouldn't even be enough to repay it." Michael froze. He remembered a mysterious influx of cash had saved him from ruin. He had always thought it was a stroke of luck, a benevolent, unknown investor. He never imagined it was Eleanor's family. Seeing his silence, Ethan delivered the final blow. He pulled another document from his briefcase. "Perhaps you still don't grasp your situation. This is a copy of the federal order to freeze your assets. Do you see the seal at the bottom?" Michael looked down at the official seal embossed with the eagle and the words, "United States Department of the Treasury." The image struck him like a sledgehammer. The Treasury, a senator. It was all horribly, terrifyingly clear. He had lost utterly and completely. Ethan stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. "You have 3 days to consider, Mr. Hayes. If you don't sign, we will see you in court. But I trust an intelligent man like yourself knows which choice is in his best interest." He paused at the door, turning back. "Oh, and one more thing. I'd recommend you get a DNA test for that newborn baby girl. Sometimes the biggest surprises come when you least expect them." Ethan left, leaving Michael alone in the vast office. He slumped into his leather chair, completely drained. The divorce petition and the federal order lay on his desk like 2 death sentences. He had lost everything. Michael sat motionless in his office for hours after Ethan Cole left. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the room, making his expensive leather chair look like a throne in a tomb. He felt like his life was that shadow stretched thin in despair before dissolving into darkness. The divorce papers and the federal freeze order lay on his desk, mocking his foolishness. A senator, the Treasury, Eleanor Vance. The 3 phrases twisted in his mind. A hurricane of regret swept away every last shred of the arrogance he had spent his youth building. He had tried calling a few high-level contacts, then he had spent a fortune schmoozing. The response was a deafening silence. His calls went unanswered, or if they were picked up, the person on the other end would stammer an excuse about a meeting and hang up. It was as if he were a plague to be avoided. He understood then, in the corridors of power, no one dared to cross the influence behind that federal seal. He was utterly isolated. The intercom on his desk buzzed, a jarring sound in the silence. He wearily picked it up. "Mr. Hayes, Chairman Liu from Sterling Properties is on the line. Should I put him through?" His assistant's voice was timid. Sterling Properties was his biggest partner, accounting for over 40% of his company's revenue. Their joint luxury condo project was his golden goose. A flicker of hope ignited in Michael's chest. Perhaps Chairman Liu could help, put him through immediately. The line connected. Michael forced a sycophantic tone. "Mr. Liu, it's Michael Hayes. To what do I owe the pleasure?" In contrast to his feigned enthusiasm, Chairman Liu's voice was cold and distant. Mr. Hayes, I'm calling to inform you that as of today, Sterling Properties is officially and unilaterally terminating all partnership contracts with Hayes Industries. What? Michael was stunned, a roaring in his ears. Mr. Liu, you must be joking. Our project is proceeding perfectly. Why so suddenly? There is no reason, Chairman Liu stated flatly. It was a decision from our board. Our lawyers will be in contact regarding the breach of contract penalties. Goodbye. Click. The line went dead. Michael sat frozen, the phone slipping from his hand and landing silently on the plush carpet. Terminating the contracts. Sterling pulling out was a death sentence for Hayes Industries. The massive capital flow would be cut off. Half his company would be paralyzed instantly. Before he could even process it, his cell phone began ringing nonstop. It was his project managers. Mr. Hayes, bad news. OSHA inspectors just raided the construction site downtown. They're citing major safety violations and have issued an indefinite stop work order. Sir, the resort project has been shut down too. They're claiming it infringes on some historical preservation zone. The order came from a National Heritage Agency. One call after another, each a hammer blow. Every single one of his projects, big and small, was being shut down for bizarre, unexpected reasons that he knew were orchestrated from above. He, trembling, opened a financial news app on his phone. A bright red headline screamed at him, Hayes Industries stock plummets on news of major partner pullout and project halts. Below was a chart with a single massive red candle plunging straight to the floor. Hundreds of millions of dollars of his net worth had evaporated in a single afternoon. The first wave of the attack was swift, brutal, and precise, leaving him no room to defend himself. Asterisk Senator Vance. It had to be him. Asterisk the old lion was using his immense power to crush him, to annihilate the career he had sacrificed everything for. Michael leaned his head back, staring at the ornate ceiling. He started to laugh, a twisted, bitter sound. He finally understood. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. While Michael Hayes was witnessing the collapse of his empire, Jessica Miller was lost in daydreams of the luxurious life that awaited her at the hospital. Today was her discharge day. Lying in a VIP suite, tended to by nurses, she was convinced she had finally made it. Although the baby being a girl was a small disappointment, she believed that with her charm, Michael would still spoil them. He was so in love with her after all. She changed into a new designer dress, applied light makeup, and held her baby, waiting for her future husband. She pictured the scene. Michael would walk in with a huge bouquet of roses, kiss her tenderly, and then their new family of 3 would go home to a beautiful new mansion he had bought for them. But the man who walked in was Michael, his face dark, his eyes bloodshot and haggard. There were no flowers, no sweet words. He just tossed a duffel bag onto the bed. Pack your things. We're leaving. His voice was hollow. Jessica was taken aback. Michael, what's wrong? Who upset you? She asked, feigning concern. Where's the car? I didn't see you pull up. Sold it, he answered curtly. We're taking a cab. Sold the car. Why? She cried in disbelief. That was a limited edition Mercedes. Then she pressed on. And where are we going? Did you buy a house for us yet? I don't want to live in an apartment, you know. I want a house with a yard near a good private school for our daughter. Oh, and for the baby's 1-month celebration, I was thinking that French restaurant at the plaza. Shut up. Michael suddenly roared, shattering her fantasy. The rage that had been simmering for days finally exploded. Jessica jumped, and the baby in her arms began to wail. She had never seen him so angry with her. You yelled at me, she started, turning on her usual tactic. Michael Hayes, are you human? I just gave birth to your child. My body is still weak. If you can't show me compassion, at least don't scream at me. Her eyes welled with tears, but her act had lost its power over him. He looked at her with pure disgust. Gave birth to my child? Are you sure this baby is mine? Ethan Cole's words about the DNA test echoed in his mind, planting a seed of deep suspicion. Jessica's face went pale. What? What are you trying to say? Of course, she's your daughter. Don't you trust me? A house? A party? Michael laughed, a self-mocking sound. Wake up, Jessica. I'm telling you now. I am broke. My accounts are frozen. My company is about to go under, and the banks are about to repossess everything. Do you understand? I am ruined. His words were like lightning strikes. Jessica was stunned, her eyes wide with horror. Ruined? How? How's that possible? The company was fine just a few days ago. Fine? He sneered. That's because I was blind. I made an enemy of someone I never should have crossed. And it's all because of you. A woman like you brought me to this. The truth was out, and Jessica's mask dropped. Her greedy, materialistic nature was exposed. What are you saying? You're blaming me, she shrieked. You're useless, Michael Hayes. Why do you think I was with you? It was for your money. Now you're telling me you're broke? How are my daughter and I supposed to live with you? Michael was speechless. So the love she always professed was a lie. Their argument escalated, attracting the attention of nurses and other patients. The baby cried louder. The once quiet VIP room was now a scene of chaos. In the end, with no money to pay the hospital bill, Michael had to swallow his pride and call everyone he knew, begging for loans, enduring the cold rejections of men he once called friends. It took him until evening to scrape together enough cash to discharge Jessica. The two of them stumbled out of the hospital. No home, no car, penniless. Their future was as dark as the New York City night descending around them. After leaving the hospital, Michael had to rent a small, damp room in a rundown part of Queens to live in. He was driven mad by Jessica's constant complaints and the baby's incessant crying. But his personal hell was only just beginning. On Monday morning, after a crowded bus ride, he arrived at his office building to a horrifying sight. Several black government sedans from the IRS were parked out front. As he walked into the lobby, two grim-faced agents in suits blocked his path. "Are you Michael Hayes, CEO of Hayes Industries?" one of them asked, his voice devoid of emotion. "Yes, that's me." "And you are?" Michael's heart hammered against his ribs. The other agent held up an official document. "We're from the Criminal Investigation Division of the IRS. Based on an anonymous tip and preliminary investigation, we have sufficient evidence to suspect Hayes Industries of large-scale organized tax evasion, fraud, and bribery. As of today, we are launching a full-scale audit of your company. We require your full cooperation." Tax evasion, bribery. Michael's mind went blank. He had been so careful, so discreet. How could he have been exposed unless that powerful entity already had all the evidence? Before he could react, the team of agents swarmed the office. They went straight to the finance department, seizing all accounting records from the past 5 years. Computers were confiscated. The entire staff watched in stunned silence, their eyes darting between their beleaguered CEO and the federal agents. The aura of power Michael had carefully cultivated for years shattered in an instant. He felt a hot flush of shame, a humiliation worse than any physical blow. "Mr. Hayes, please come with us to our headquarters for questioning," an agent said, his tone leaving no room for refusal. He was led away like a criminal. The interrogation room was cold and oppressive. Michael sat on a steel chair facing two seasoned investigators. A harsh fluorescent light beat down on him, exposing his panic. They didn't grill him. Instead, they calmly presented one piece of evidence after another, systematically dismantling his defenses. "Mr. Hayes, could you explain this $5 million consulting fee paid to the head of the City Planning Commission last March? We have records showing that money was later wired to his daughter's offshore account. And the profits from this real estate development, why weren't they declared in your financial statements? The estimated tax evasion amounts to over $20 million. Where did that money go, Mr. Hayes?" Every question, every number, every document they produced was a cold, hard fact. They were the ghost accounts, the fake invoices, the entire fraudulent system he had built. He had thought it was buried forever, but they had unearthed it with terrifying ease. Cold sweat trickled down his back. His throat was dry. He couldn't utter a single word of denial. He knew it was useless. They had him. The interrogation lasted the entire day. When he was finally allowed to leave, it was dark. He stumbled out of the IRS building, physically and mentally broken. He knew he was now facing something far worse than bankruptcy, prison. In the days that followed, he was summoned repeatedly. The press got wind of the story. Headlines blared across news sites. Hayes' empire crumbles amid massive tax scandal. CEO Michael Hayes under federal investigation for bribing officials. His career, his reputation, his fortune, everything he had ever been proud of was turning to ash. He was cornered with no way out. While Michael was drowning in a quagmire of legal troubles and debt, in another world, a world he could no longer touch, Eleanor Vance was beginning her new life. That evening, a high-profile state charity gala was being held at a grand ballroom in the heart of the city. It was an event for the nation's most influential figures in politics, the military, and business. The flashes of cameras were relentless. Every guest who walked the red carpet was a name that could shake the foundations of the American economy. Suddenly, the entire hall fell silent. All eyes, all cameras, turned to the main entrance. A custom-armored Maybach pulled up. Ethan Cole, looking dashing in a tuxedo, stepped out. He didn't walk in, but went around to open the other door himself. A slender, pale hand emerged, followed by a graceful figure. It was Eleanor Vance. She wore a bespoke couture gown of emerald green silk, intricately embroidered with delicate silver thread. The design clung to her form, highlighting her perfect silhouette. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo, revealing a graceful neck adorned with a stunning diamond necklace. Her makeup was subtle, yet it accentuated a beauty that was both ethereal and commanding. But what truly stunned the crowd was not her beauty, but her aura. Gone was the gentle, submissive Eleanor, who hid behind her husband. The Eleanor of today had eyes that were calm yet sharp, a smile that was gentle yet distant. She radiated an air of noble, cool, and formidable power. She stood like a rare, untouchable orchid. She took Ethan Cole's arm and glided down the red carpet. The camera flashes were blinding, but she remained perfectly composed, offering serene nods to acquaintances, powerful figures Michael Hayes could only have dreamed of meeting. "Isn't that Senator Vance's granddaughter?" "It's been too long, more beautiful than ever," a cabinet secretary greeted her with a warm smile. "Miss Vance, I hear the biotech venture you've invested in is showing incredible results." "A true prodigy," a 4-star general remarked with admiration. She simply smiled and offered modest replies. Her appearance alongside Ethan Cole, the legal eagle of New York, immediately sparked a flurry of speculation. Her resplendent image was broadcast live on a national financial news channel. In a cramped, squalid room in Queens, Michael Hayes was huddled on a sagging mattress, chugging a bottle of cheap whiskey. The old TV was tuned to that same channel. He no longer cared about the stock tickers. He just wanted to drink until he forgot his miserable reality. And then he saw her. Eleanor's image filled the screen, as beautiful as a goddess, radiating power on the arm of a distinguished man. She was smiling, a genuine smile he had never seen before. Crash! The whiskey bottle slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. He scrambled toward the TV, his eyes wide with disbelief. That woman, that regal, princess-like woman, was that really Eleanor? The same wife he had cruelly abandoned in a hurricane? He listened to the commentators' fawning words, granddaughter of the legendary Senator Alastair Vance, a brilliant investor in her own right, the crown jewel of the Vance family. Each word was a needle piercing his heart. He understood. He understood everything. He had thrown away a priceless diamond to pick up a worthless stone. He had single-handedly destroyed the one bridge that could have led him to the true peak of power. An all-consuming regret and terror seized him. He realized he hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost the entire world. He sank to the filthy floor, clutching his head, and let out a guttural, desperate howl. But it was too late. In the most luxurious law office in Manhattan, Ethan Cole leaned back in his leather chair, his eyes scanning the documents his assistant had just delivered. He was a man of lethal efficiency. To him, perfect revenge wasn't a loud, brutish crushing of an opponent, but a slow, intelligent stripping away of their masks, letting them fall into the abyss of their own making in the most painful and humiliating way possible. Michael Hayes was nearly finished, but the final card, Jessica Miller, had yet to be played. "Mr. Cole, this is the complete file on Jessica Miller you requested," the young assistant reported. Ethan nodded him away. He turned the pages, a cold smile forming on his lips. The past of this seemingly innocent young assistant was, as he suspected, far from clean. The report was exhaustive. Jessica Miller's real name was Jennifer Mullen. She grew up in a poor rural town in Appalachia and dropped out of high school to seek her fortune in the city. She had changed her name, scrubbed her history, and reinvented herself as an educated urbanite. In her early years, she had worked as a cocktail waitress and a hostess in high-end nightclubs, where she learned to use her beauty and feigned vulnerability to ensnare wealthy men. The list of her so-called sponsors and sugar daddies was several pages long, but the most damning detail was on the final page. The investigator had uncovered that around the time Jessica would have conceived a child with Michael, she was also intimately involved with a much wealthier married executive, a Mr. Davenport, who owned a large import-export firm. The report included several candid photos of Jessica on the arm of Mr. Davenport, entering a 5-star hotel. The date stamps on the photos were irrefutable proof. Ethan closed the file. He wouldn't release this information all at once. That would be too easy. He wanted Michael to suffer the torment of suspicion, to dig for the truth himself and to be destroyed by it. He called his assistant. "Select a few of the photos of Miss Miller with other men, blur their faces, and leak them to a few online gossip forums. Make it look like a typical messy love life exposé." "Yes, sir." Also, Ethan continued, his voice low and calculating, "Start a rumor. Hint that the newborn daughter of the Hayes Industries CEO looks nothing like him. That his mistress was seen with another tycoon. Let it spread through the business circles Michael used to frequent. I wanted to get back to him, but it has to seem natural." "Understood, sir. I'll see to it immediately." Ethan hung up, turning his chair to look out at the sprawling city. The chessboard was set. Every move was under his control. Asterisk Michael Hayes, your tragedy has only just begun. You will pay for every tear Eleanor ever shed. Asterisk rumors have legs, and they travel fast, especially in a gossip-hungry high society. Within days, the whispers reached Michael Hayes exactly as Ethan had planned. He was in his cramped room when a call from an old business acquaintance came through. "Hey, Hayes, is that you?" The man's voice was overly friendly, laced with schadenfreude. "Heard the company's in a bit of trouble. I'm managing, Michael grunted. Come on, we're friends, the man pressed, getting to the point. Listen, I heard a nasty rumor about you. People are saying your new baby doesn't look a thing like you. They're saying your little secretary used to be with old man Davenport from the import-export business. Of course, I don't believe it. It's just jealous people talking. I just wanted to give you a heads up, in case someone's trying to mess with your family. I'm sewed. Click. Michael hung up, his face ashen. Of course, I don't believe it, but he knew that where there's smoke, there's fire. Ethan Cole's words echoed in his head. I'd recommend you get a DNA test. The seed of doubt, once planted, sprouted into a monstrous tree of suspicion, choking out all reason. He started watching Jessica more closely. He noticed that whenever he lamented his financial ruin, her eyes would flash with annoyance, not sympathy. She was irritable and evasive whenever he asked about her past. The suspicion grew into a gnawing certainty. He had to know. The next morning, he told Jessica he was taking the baby for her routine vaccinations. Jessica, busy with a face mask, just waved him off. Go on and pick me up some of that expensive soup on your way back. Michael held the baby, scrutinizing her tiny face, searching for any resemblance to himself. There was none. She looked nothing like him, and nothing like Jessica either. A chill settled in his heart. He didn't go to the clinic. He went to a quiet park, carefully plucked a few fine hairs from the baby's head and a few of his own, sealing them in a plastic bag. Using the last of his cash, he went to a private DNA lab and requested an anonymous paternity test. The wait for the results was agonizing. A few days later, while he was asleep, Jessica went through his wallet looking for cash. She found the receipt from the DNA lab. The words paternity test were printed clearly on it. Smack, the wallet hit Michael's face, waking him up. Jessica's face was no longer soft and pitiful. It was contorted with fury. Explain this, Michael Hayes. What is this? She shrieked, waving the receipt. He knew he couldn't hide it anymore. He sat up, his voice cold. It's exactly what it looks like. You don't trust me? You think she isn't your daughter? Jessica went hysterical. You bastard. You're a failure. Now that you're broke, you turn on me and my child. Are you even a man? She lunged at him, scratching and hitting. The small room became a battlefield. Screams, the crash of objects, and the baby's cries filled the air. Get off me, he roared, shoving her away. The pretense was over. Jessica sat on the floor, weeping and cursing. That's right. I regret it. I regret being so stupid as to follow a loser like you. I wasted my youth on you for what? The stump? A useless husband? You've ruined my life, Michael Hayes. A relationship built on lies and money crumbled once those foundations were gone. Life in the room became a silent, suffocating hell. And then the day of judgment arrived. An email landed in his inbox. Subject, DNA test results. His heart stopped. His hand trembled on the mouse. He clicked open the attached PDF. He scrolled straight to the conclusion. The words in bold print hit him like an anvil. Asterisk based on the analysis of 24 genetic markers, the alleged father, Michael Hayes, is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The probability of paternity is 0%. Asterisk 0%. Michael's world collapsed around that perfect, round number. He didn't scream. A terrifying calm washed over him. He just stared at the screen and began to laugh, a broken, agonized sound. He was a clown, a complete fool. He had sacrificed everything, a wife who truly loved him, a powerful family, his career, his future, all for a lie. The great love he thought he'd found was a trap. The son he'd yearned for never existed. The woman he'd protected was a venomous snake. He calmly shut down the computer and waited. A little while later, Jessica came back from a walk. What are you doing sitting in the dark like a ghost? She snapped. He said nothing. Just held up his phone, the screen displaying the test results. The moment Jessica saw, probability of paternity is 0%, the color drained from her face. That's fake. You forged it to frame me, she stammered, but her trembling voice betrayed her. Michael rose slowly, his eyes empty. How long are you going to keep up the act? Knowing the jig was up, Jessica collapsed, clutching his legs and sobbing. Michael, I'm sorry. I was wrong. But I did it because I love you so much. I was afraid you wouldn't want me without a baby. Love. Michael whispered. His voice a demonic hiss. The calm finally broke, and a volcano of repressed rage erupted. He grabbed her by the hair. Tell me who is the bastard who fathered this child. Tell me. I don't know. Smack. A hard slap sent her sprawling. The baby shrieked. You ruined my life. You filthy liar. He lost all control, beating her mercilessly. The tiny room filled with screams and cries. Finally, he dragged her to the door and threw her into the dirty hallway. He went back inside, grabbed the wailing baby, and tossed her into Jessica's arms, followed by her bag of belongings. Get out, both of you. Get out of my sight and never let me see you again." The door slammed shut, a final cruel end to his foolish, self-inflicted tragedy. After throwing Jessica and the child out, Michael Hayes became a walking corpse. He locked himself in the foul-smelling room with cheap liquor, but reality was inescapable. The final nail was hammered into the coffin of Hayes Industries. The tax evasion and bribery investigation concluded. With irrefutable evidence, likely provided by the Vance family, the IRS issued a final ruling. Hayes Industries was liable for nearly $1 billion in back taxes, penalties, and fines. $1 billion. For the old Hayes Industries, it would have been a struggle. For the current debt-ridden shell of a company, it was a death sentence. He was summoned to a law office representing his creditors. Dressed in ragged clothes and reeking of alcohol, he walked into the luxurious conference room facing a panel of men in sharp suits who looked at him with disdain. "Mr. Hayes," the lead lawyer said coolly, "as you know, your company is insolvent. We are forced to file for bankruptcy." They placed a thick stack of documents in front of him. "This is the bankruptcy petition. Please sign here." His hand shook as he picked up the pen, the same kind of pen he once used to sign nine-figure deals, now used to sign his own company's death certificate. He stared at the line that read "Legal Representative, Michael Hayes," then closed his eyes and scribbled a weak, shaky signature. What followed was a cold, impersonal blur. Court officers sealed the company headquarters. The gleaming brass plaque of Hayes Industries was pried off the wall. White tape was plastered across the glass doors, officially ending his once glorious empire. Michael was allowed back into his office one last time. The building was empty, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He walked into his old office, the symbol of his success with its panoramic city view, where he had once felt like a king. It was all just ashes now. He had nothing to pack. He just took the single photo from his desk, his wedding picture with Eleanor. She was smiling, a bright, happy smile. He was smiling too, the smile of a victor. He caressed her face in the photo, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he wept. He had lost her for good. Leaving the building, another call came. The bank, the Greenwich estate, his sports car, his last remaining assets, all were being auctioned off to pay his debts. He was now officially homeless and penniless. He stood amidst the bustling New York City crowd, lost and invisible. He had fallen from the highest peak to the deepest abyss, and he knew this still wasn't the end. The room Michael had rented was in a dark, damp alley in a forgotten corner of the city, a place for migrant workers and broken dreams. The air was thick with the smell of grease, mildew, and despair. For a man who had lived in a Greenwich mansion, this was the ultimate humiliation. He was 3 days late on rent. That morning, he was jolted awake by a violent pounding on the door. Asterisk bang. 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 Asterisk Hayes. You deadbeat. Open this door. It was his landlady, a large, aggressive woman. He reluctantly opened it. What's with all the noise? He grumbled, trying to cling to a final shred of dignity. She stood with her hands on her hips. The noise? You're 3 days late with the rent. You planning on skipping out? I'll pay. Just give me a few more days, he lied weakly. A few more days, she cackled. I heard about you, the bankrupt CEO. A real-life bum. Where are you going to get the money? You going to steal it? Her words were like slaps to his face. He flushed with rage, but couldn't say a word. I don't care, she declared. No money today? You get out. I'm not running a charity for losers like you. She barged into the room and started throwing his meager belongings, a few ragged clothes, a thin blanket, out into the hallway. Get out. Get out and don't come back. Michael stood frozen, watching his life being tossed out like garbage. He, a man who once commanded boardrooms, was being evicted and humiliated by a slum landlady. The cruel irony was a pain worse than losing his fortune. You'll regret this, he hissed, an empty threat. Yeah, I'm shaking in my boots, she sneered, slamming and locking the door. He was left in the dirty hallway with his pile of junk, the object of his neighbors' pitying and scornful gazes. He quietly packed his things into a torn bag and shuffled out of the alley. He had nowhere to go. He was now officially a homeless man on the streets of New York. The days that followed were a living hell. He wandered the streets by day, blending in with the crowds to hide his shame. At night, he slept under bridges or in parks. He ate discarded food from restaurant dumpsters, fighting with stray dogs for scraps. He was a true vagrant, filthy, ragged, and reeking. But in the depths of his despair, a desperate idea took hold. Asterisk Eleanor. Only she can save me. Asterisk if she would just take pity on him, maybe he could have a second chance. He scraped together some change and went to a public library. He searched her name. The results were staggering. She wasn't just a senator's granddaughter. She was the brilliant CEO of a new, wildly successful tech firm, a rising star in the industry. Her company's headquarters was a gleaming glass tower in the financial district, a monument to the power and wealth he had thrown away. He went there for days. He hid across the street, watching, learning her routine. Today, he would make his move. He waited for hours, his stomach aching with hunger. Finally, her black Maybach emerged from the underground garage. It was her. Without thinking, he darted into traffic, running straight for the car. Screech, the car stopped inches from his knees. 2 bodyguards in black suits were out of a trailing SUV in seconds, grabbing him. What the hell do you think you're doing? Michael didn't resist. He just stared at the tinted rear window where he knew she was sitting. And then he did the unthinkable. He dropped to his knees. The proud man who once looked down on the world was now kneeling on the cold, hard pavement. Eleanor, I know you're in there. Please, just talk to me, he cried, his voice hoarse and desperate. People stopped to stare. Cars honked. Tears streamed down his face. Eleanor, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was a monster. Forgive me. Please give me one more chance. He wept, banging his head on the ground until his forehead was bruised and bleeding. Hit me. Scream at me. Do whatever you want. Just don't ignore me. I can't live without you, Eleanor. His pathetic plea echoed down the busy street, but the car door remained shut, as cold and silent as the heart of the woman inside. Amidst the chaos and murmurs of the crowd, the rear door of the Maybach finally opened. A glittering silver heel touched the pavement, followed by a vision of ethereal grace. Eleanor stepped out. She wore a simple, elegant white silk dress under a cashmere coat. The evening breeze gently tossed a few strands of her hair. Under the streetlights, her face was heartbreakingly beautiful, but as cold and remote as a marble statue. She looked down at the wretched man kneeling at her feet, a cruel and perfect contrast of their new realities. Ethan Cole emerged from the passenger side, standing silently beside her, a loyal guardian. Michael looked up through his tears. Eleanor, he choked out, a flicker of hope in his voice. You came out to see me. A faint, mirthless smile touched Eleanor's lips. Her voice, when it came, was soft, yet it cut him to the bone, colder than the New York winter wind. Stand up, Michael. You're dirtying the pavement. Her words contained no anger, no hatred, only pure glacial indifference. And it was that indifference that finally killed the last spark of hope within him. He remained on his knees, shaking his head. No, I won't get up until you forgive me. He launched into his final desperate performance. Eleanor, I was a fool. I was deceived by that she-devil. I regret it every single day. Please believe me one last time. Eleanor listened impassively until he had exhausted his pathetic pleas. Then she spoke, my forgiveness. She paused, her eyes locking with his. You are not worthy of it. For simple words. A fatal blow. Why? He wailed. I've lost everything. I've been punished. What more do you want from me? Punished? Eleanor let out a soft, sad laugh at his foolishness. Michael, you still don't understand. Everything that has happened to you is not because of me. It is the consequence of your own cruelty, your own choices. She took a step closer, her voice turning sharp. The moment you threw me from that car in a hurricane to save another woman and her bastard child, it was over. Our love, our history, it all died on that highway. She stepped back, turning away, unwilling to look at him for another second. Don't ever appear before me again. Next time it won't be my bodyguards who remove you. She got back in the car. Ethan held the door for her, then took his place. The Maybach glided away silently, leaving Michael Hayes kneeling alone in the street, his hopeless sobs swallowed by the indifferent city. The sweetest. Revenge is not to cause your enemy pain, but to make them realize that in your world, they no longer exist. After being thrown out by Michael, Jessica's life became a nomadic nightmare. Her savings dwindled. Her beauty, her only asset, faded under the stress of poverty and single motherhood. She lived in squalor, often taking her misery out on the innocent child whose cries grated on her nerves. Her only hope was to find the baby's real father, the wealthy Mr. Davenport. She knew he wouldn't give them a place in his life, but he had to provide financial support. With a large sum of money, she could start over. After days of stalking him, she cornered him in the parking garage of an exclusive golf club. Mr. Davenport, she cried, running in front of his car, holding the baby. Davenport, a portly middle-aged man, went pale. What are you doing here? I told you never to contact me. You can't just abandon us, she sobbed. This is your daughter. Look at her. You can't just leave your own child. As they argued, a sharp female voice cut through the air. Oh, really? A place in his life? You've got some nerve, you little tramp. A lavishly dressed woman dripping in diamonds stood behind them, flanked by 4 large, menacing-looking men. It was Mrs. Davenport, a woman known for her ruthlessness. Honey, Davenport stammered, trembling. Smack, she slapped him hard across the face. Don't you honey me, you cheating pig. Then she turned her venomous gaze on Jessica. And you dare seduce my husband and try to extort him with a child. Jessica backed away in terror. Ma'am, please. It's not like that. The baby is innocent. I don't care if the baby is innocent. But I know you're not, Mrs. Davenport sneered. You use this pretty face to ruin families, don't you? She gestured to her thugs, who grabbed Jessica, ignoring her screams. Well, today I'm going to take that face away from you. Let's see who you can seduce then. From her purse, she produced a razor-sharp box cutter. No, please don't. Jessica shrieked. But it was too late. With a cold, steady hand, Mrs. Davenport slashed the blade across Jessica's cheek, a spray of blood, a horrific scream, and it was over. She calmly wiped the blade, tossed the wailing baby back at the collapsed Jessica, and left with her entourage, leaving Jessica writhing in a pool of her own blood. Her beauty, the weapon she had wielded her whole life, was gone forever. Her future would be one of pain, shame, and unending nightmares. Under a highway overpass, Michael Hayes shivered in a tattered coat. He was skeletal, haunted. It had been 2 days since he'd last eaten. All pride was gone, replaced by the primal need to survive. He stumbled towards a nearby night market, not to buy food, but to scavenge from the dumpsters behind the stalls. As he was digging through a pile of trash, he saw a familiar figure huddled in a dark corner. It was Jessica. She looked even worse than he did. A hideous, jagged scar ran down the side of her face. Her eyes were empty, filled with a dead, hateful light. She was begging, but her disfigurement scared people away. A kind young woman took pity on the crying baby and gave Jessica a hot bun. Michael's eyes lit up with animal hunger. He lunged. Give me that. He snarled, trying to snatch the bun. Jessica clutched it protectively. No, it's mine. Get away. I'm starving. Give it to me. A pathetic, ugly brawl erupted on the dirty pavement. The two people who had once plotted a future together now clawed and cursed at each other over a single piece of bread. You ruined my life, she screamed, scratching his face. You lied to me. It was you who ruined me, he yelled, pulling her hair. They rolled on the ground like feral animals until 2 security guards ran over, beating them with batons. Get out of here, you crazy bums. Pained and defeated, they scrambled to their feet and fled in opposite directions. 2 wretched figures disappearing into the dark, unforgiving alleys of the city. Their sinful love had met its squalid, pitiful end. 1 year later, the autumn leaves in New York City were a brilliant gold. In a quiet, elegant tea house, Eleanor Vance sat across from Ethan Cole. In the years since her divorce, she had taken the helm of her family's tech division and through her own genius and determination, transformed it into a global powerhouse. She was a respected, formidable leader. Throughout it all, Ethan had been a quiet, constant presence, a friend, a confidant, a partner. Their relationship had grown slowly, naturally, built on a foundation of deep trust and understanding. He took her hand, his touch warm and steady. Eleanor, he said softly, you've proven to the world how strong you are. But I hope you know that with me, you don't always have to be. I've waited a long time for you, Ellie, and I can wait as long as it takes. Eleanor looked at him, and for the first time in years, a genuine, peaceful smile bloomed on her face. It was as bright and warm as the autumn sun, chasing away the last shadows of her past. The next morning, back in her stunning CEO's office, Eleanor reviewed a daily news briefing her assistant had prepared. Her eyes scanned the headlines: a global summit, stock market fluctuations, a new city infrastructure project. Then, a small article tucked away in the corner of the local news section caught her eye. The headline read, Vagrant arrested for public disturbance. The short blurb stated that a homeless man, Michael Hayes, had been arrested for shoplifting and causing a disturbance. It noted he appeared to be suffering from mental instability related to chronic alcoholism. Eleanor read the name that had once shattered her world, and she felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no anger, nothing at all. He was just a name in a newspaper, a piece of irrelevant social trivia less important than a minor fluctuation in the stock market. The ultimate revenge, the most complete ending, is to forget. To relegate someone so completely to the past that they cease to exist in your present. Eleanor calmly turned the page, her mind already moving on to her company's strategy for the next quarter. She stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out as the sun set over the glittering city. An endless, bright future awaited her. The past was finally truly gone.